Well, that news in the background, PDS contract suspended. That news was broken here on PMS Press just 24 hours ago. And 24 hours on, it's still the biggest topic out there. One of the biggest, I guess, scandals this year. And it's still unfolding. We're still trying to understand what really happened and where we go from here. We know what has happened so far. We know that a few more details are emerging. That the government suspended the concession agreement with PDS due to the suspicion of fraud. We've heard the energy minister use that word today, and Peter Mewu says government was forced to suspend because as a precautionary measure, really. Also, government says it detected now the fraud after a series of due diligence tests by the ECG. Now, the contract, the PDS was supposed to manage the operations of ECG for 20 years. That is a contract that we entered with them starting from Friday, 1st of March. And so since 1st of March, they've been controlling the assets of ECG, but also the collection of revenue and the distribution of power to your homes as well. The demand guarantees were key prerequisites for the lease of assets in March to secure the assets that were transferred to the company to manage. So that was really central to the whole deal, which is now a bone of contention. The Africa Center for Energy Policy has held a press conference tonight, and they say there's gross negligence led to this particular major issue on the hands of government to deal with. We also have seen questions being raised, in fact, by ASAP about MIDA, which they say created room for PDS to win the contract, even though it did not meet the conditions. These are very strong accusations, and we'll get ASAP to try and break down why they hold this view on it. Now, ASAP is also questioning why Parliament failed to do proper work on this and insist on bank guarantees instead of the insurance bond. That's an issue that ASAP has raised. We have a member of Parliament, ranking member on the committee, joining us as well, who will answer that question. The minority in Parliament, they are demanding a proper probe into this. They have fundamental questions. The main one is, how did government contract PDS without valid securities? Is this a case of better late than never? And how do you rectify this? One of the key things that hasn't been addressed yet, what happens to the PDS workers during this period? We'll be joined by the Deputy Energy Minister, who will help us navigate that question. Stay with us here on PMS. It's a very packed show, but I want to drill down to what really happened. But most importantly, how will this be resolved so that the arrangement we've had, remember we have contractual obligations going way back to the United States of America with the compact. And so implications, we'll be exploring that. Stay with us here on PMS Press. In the studio with me tonight is the ranking member on the Mines and Energy Committee in Parliament, Adams Mutawakilu. Also with me in the studio is the Executive Director of the Africa Center for Energy Policy, Benjamin Boakye. Joining us on phone right now is the Deputy Energy Minister responsible for this particular sector, power, William Oreku Edu. And we'll also be joined by Dr. Steve Mateo, policy analyst, ISODEC, who's also been involved in the work that has led to the concessionaire. There are many concerns raised by civil society that we'll get to the heart of very shortly. I want to start with you, Benjamin Boakye. Today at the press conference, you raised an issue that hasn't been touched on quite extensively since this broke, which is the role of MIDA in all this. What role did they play?
No, I think MIDA is a government agency, so it is the representative of all of us in this whole transaction. So they manage the transaction with the MCC to ensure that we could follow the process to get the right partner for the power sector, private sector participation. So they started the entire process of issuing RFP, which is a request for proposal. I think about 46 companies applied, and they sifted through and got 6 of them. And then those 6 were requested, to submit final bid for the concession. Along the line, a lot of changes were made. Introduction of 51% Ghanaian participation, and also conditions that no worker will be sacked. So a lot of things were dropped in there, and most of the companies actually dropped out. So you had 4 companies dropping out, and you had 2 going through to about a month towards the end of the whole process. And then BXC, a Chinese company, was disqualified. So
and they sued and
yes,
lost.
And they sued and lost. So essentially, Miracle was just walking through the whole process, not complying with any of those requirements. Only went through to be told that you can then bring your 51% local content. And the argument has been that if all the parties had been told that you don't necessarily need to produce your 51% in the application, that could have probably allowed them to compete, and then afterward they will go and look for local partners.
Let's quantify it. When you say 51%, and I'm just checking the media website, the concessionaire was supposed to invest $580 million.
$580 million, yes.
That's more than half $1 billion.
$500 million.
That's a huge amount.
Yeah.
So that's how. Say that again. It's not big enough.
Huge.
It's not big enough.
5 years.
It's too small.
For the power sector, I mean, that is about 6 months of revenue collection. So
For 5 years.
it's not so much money.
Okay.
So what they need to do is about $115 million dollars investment a year. It's not so much money, but for a local businessman, that is significant. So what that means is that if you are picking 50% interest, 51% interest, so you should be prepared to give about $270 million, to participate in that process. So that is why we kept asking the questions: who are these local people? Where are they getting their money from? Where are they going to bring the money to ensure that they invest? Because ultimately, what they have to do to bring ECG to where we want it to be is the investment. You have to put in the money to retool the aging equipment and make it more efficient, and also the billing system and all of that. So if you did not show local companies that had the capacity to partner Miracle, we know Miracle has been doing some work in the Philippines, but they are not for that Christmas. They were going to sit and watch and say, hey, you are the majority shareholders, where are you? Bring your money. Yes, before they invest money.
So let's clarify. Miracle, which led the consortium, didn't have an issue with raising that guarantee.
So now it's become...
We need to disaggregate. Because
it's become a consortium, so it's now PDS. So all of them have to think together and say, how do we bring the guarantees? And the question about these guarantees, and it's shocking how it became an insurance bond, really.
Because it didn't start off like that. The criteria was not an insurance bond.
It's not criteria, it's a contract. That has been approved, ratified by the representatives of the people, Parliament.
That's what you're saying is interesting. Are you saying that the contract that Mutawakili and his colleagues approved said that it should be a bank guarantee?
A bank guarantee.
And in fact, specify the type of bank.
The structure of the letter is even in the agreement.
Yeah.
The structure of the LC, it's in the contract.
So at what point?
Did that metamorphose into an insurance bond? And these are questions that Parliament will have to ask MIDA and the government. How that became the guarantee that was
down version of
significantly watered down. Significantly watered down. Because when you have a bank guarantee, it's virtually cash. So if Miracle fails to perform, you just walk to the bank and say, these are the failings, and the bank can assess and pay you back your money. But assessing insurance bond is not as easy as you would find with the LC. So I don't know how they were able to achieve that without going back to Parliament for amendments to it. And a lot of those have been seen, changing conditions precedent, also approved by Parliament, to conditions subsequent. So somebody is overriding the decisions of Parliament.
We're learning from yesterday when this thing broke on the station, that on this program, that the due diligence was a condition subsequent.
It cannot be.
No.
It's
but
not.
that's what
It cannot be.
said here.
In fact, in the agreement, there is no condition subsequent in the agreement.
We must be careful
Yes.
that due diligence arises from the guarantee. So it's not like the guarantee, then due diligence is another separate. If somebody provided you with a guarantee, it is your responsibility to do the due diligence to ascertain the validity of that guarantee. So they are not separate, whereby provide guarantee, then another stage due diligence. No.
Now, let's come to the point that Bembachi is making about what you approved.
Yeah, thank you very much. I will say good evening to our cherished viewers, and more especially the good people of Damango constituency. He spoke about MIDA. I want to add something small to it. MIDA is at the office of the president. The CEO of MIDA is the appointee of the president. It's the president who appoints the CEO.
The point is?
Yes.
That means
that it's not like MIDA is treated separately, different from the government.
So your point is this is a government
It's at
agency.
the office of the president.
It's an executive-controlled institution.
Yes, that is what
like anybody else.
They link up.
Like anybody else in government.
So you cannot take
Are you suggesting
MIDA away
are you
from
suggesting
government.
that if ASAP is saying they failed, then by extension...
It's the president who has failed.
that's
Because if I work under you directly and I fail, it's the president that has failed. As my brother has indicated, when the agreement came, there were 45 condition precedents. And the first one is the ratification, the approval by Parliament. It's one of the first condition precedents. So in Parliament, when we are looking at condition precedent, we can say, okay, go and fulfill this before. We will now approve the first condition precedent by approving it. Then the executive takes it back and then work, ensure that the other condition precedents are fulfilled. Then an effective date, therefore, takes place.
So what you're saying, when you're approving it, you probably put in the approval that this approval is only effective upon...
It is in the agreement. That condition precedent, ratification by Parliament or approval
So
by
all
Parliament.
of these must be satisfied before it becomes effective.
Yeah, the 45, parliamentary approval is one of the 45 condition precedents. So when we approve it, they guarantee everything intact. Then, when we invited ECG, and they appeared before us on the 8th of March, that is exactly a week after the takeover. After the takeover, they indicated that transfer date occurred on 1st March 2019. 29 condition precedents were satisfied. 16 remaining. So in this case, they went further to tell us that the 16 condition precedents that were remaining had become condition subsequent. That means after the handing over of the assets of ECG, that they will fulfill it. Who has given the executive or the president the power to vary what Parliament has approved?
So when you're approving, this should have, the 16 that was remaining, should have been achieved before the 1st of March when they actually took over.
Including the guarantee.
Okay.
And when you request for somebody to give you a guarantee, you must authenticate it.
Was due diligence written into what you approved?
Like due diligence on the guarantee? No.
Okay.
Provision of guarantee. But the due diligence kicks in. So if I just bring you a paper, this is my guarantee. They just look at it and say, okay, go ahead. You are risking our assets.
So you're saying that it was automatic, that once it was mentioned a guarantee was
you must confirm it.
You must confirm
You must confirm it. And that's the due diligence. You must confirm it that what you are giving me is really true. If I want to buy an asset
But they did not. Because the IFC and MIDA, both of them said watertight.
And if MIDA is part of government.
By the way, IFC is International Finance Corporation and a private arm of the world.
If MIDA is part of government, so we shouldn't distance government from.
What about the IFC, which is a reputable international finance organization,
You see,
part of the World Bank?
You see, we must understand that nobody is here to show sympathy for us that we just believe and absorb it. And that is why MIDA is there, which is part of government. The due diligence must be properly done. And because human being is not perfect, or institutions are not perfect, institutions have interests. That is why it's very, very critical that we do this thing meticulously, knowing that the asset of ECG is over 100 billion Ghana cedis.
Are you serious?
I'm telling you.
It's $18 billion. Yes.
$18 billion.
$18 billion.
$18 billion. So you're saying that, that is the quantum of assets we gave.
We are giving out.
We actually gave to PDS until last night.
Until last night we realized that even the guarantee they provided us.
So if they are sold.
Did you say $18 billion
of assets?
Yes.
Of assets. That's what we handed to PDS.
Yes. Now, the risk is, assuming they had run down this asset significantly within these 5 months, do you know the cost it would have been on us? Huge costs. Because we were negligent in ensuring that the right thing is done. We were negligent in ensuring that the right thing is done. And when we detected it, after there were issues that minority had raised over the period. One, in respect to the guarantee. Other civil society organizations came on board and had raised those ones. One, I read IES. Except you had also raised the same
we wrote
issues.
to the committee.
You were part of the committee or the board that was...
We even wrote to the committee. They didn't look at it. So
no, you brought your advice to the committee.
comment.
We took it on board, but not in respect to the guarantee. After the takeover, the issue of guarantee became very, very critical.
Okay,
now as a committee,
why is the guarantee important?
Because that is the cushioning for government when there are challenges in the execution
of this.
Yes.
So that give me a close. We hear guarantee the whole of the last 24 hours. What is it?
We have different types.
Let's break it down. So this is the situation. It's a $4 billion cash flow for PDS. So PDS is the one that will collect every revenue in the power sector and then distribute it to the value chain. So the generators will then benefit. The transmission company will also benefit. But PDS is the one that is going to take the money before it cascades down. So the past 5 months, if you break it down, $4 billion a year, it's close to $500 million of revenues collected. Okay, so if PDS sits on that money and maybe bolts with that money, where are you going to get the money?
Okay.
So you need to have a guarantee that says that if you have to, and every quarter we're supposed to assess them.
Yeah.
So if you assess and realize that they are not even paying everybody in the chain, then you can go to the bank and say, the guarantee they posted, we have to activate it because they have taken money and not paid everybody.
Okay.
You understand?
Okay.
But in this situation, if they bolt with the money and there is no proper guarantee, you have lost.
That's why I say cushioning.
Okay.
So that in
You have
terms
lost
of
money.
difficulties, they to cushion you. It won't be
I
too
haven't
much
explained
of a
it. I need to bring in Oriku. I know you're here, so you stay with me on this. And I want to bring in the Deputy Energy Minister in charge of power, Mr. Oriku. Mr. Oriku, thank you for your time here on PM Express. Hello, Mr. Oriku. Hello, Mr. Oriku. Also joining me right now is Dr. Steve Matial. Do I have Mr. Rekwedu on the line?
Yes, Stephen, I can hear you loud and clear.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rekwedu. So tell me, where are we tonight? And I know a lot has happened today. Where are we tonight in unraveling this mystery?
Thank you very much once again, and my regards to your guys in the studio and all your viewers. I'm sorry I couldn't join you in person. A lot has gone under the bridge. I don't know exactly the topic that you've been discussing in particular, but where we are at now is that the Energy Commission, as the regulator, has suspended the retail license for PDS. So PDS is not, as I'm talking to you, retailing energy ECG has taken over that, and the PDS is still the distributor of power in the country. As per the law, they need to be given some 30 days to be heard, so to speak, by the Energy Commission. So that's where we are right now. And as far as the events occurring Qatar is concerned, steps are being taken to reconfirm what we already know. That is, it looks as if there has been some misrepresentation at the end of our quote. That one, we need to reconfirm that. So that is where we are right now.
So when you say steps are being taken, what steps exactly?
I need to be very careful here, choose my words carefully. But we have been in touch with our coach. That is why all this thing has come about where we are right now. And basically that things are not as they appear to be. We have been in touch with the MCC and, of course, MIDA. But let me take this opportunity to correct something. Did I hear somebody at the studio say that MIDA is part of government?
Yes, the minority ranking member.
That is not quite correct. MIDA is not part of government, so to speak. So we've been in touch with MIDA, MCC, and we are, trying to delve a little bit deeper into the events that have happened in Qatar. And they're not very, very clear, I'm afraid to say. So we are still at it. A delegation hopefully will be sent again through Qatar to, like I said earlier, to delve a little bit deeper. That is why it is a suspension. It's a suspension because if it turns out that the allegation is not correct, it can be cured. That is why we have not gone all out to terminate the agreement, but rather we're talking about suspension. So
there is a scenario that may play out in the next few days as you do this reconfirmation that may actually end up lifting the suspension and PDS resuming control over distribution in Ghana.
That is a distinct possibility. If it turns out that our fears right now is confirmed, then it's not confirmed, then that could well happen. But we are standing on very firm ground that the information we have is quite good.
And also explain to me, this went to Parliament, and I've heard from ASEP tonight explain this. You went to Parliament, and thankfully you're also a member of Parliament, so I'm sure you know this. What Parliament approved, I've heard and seen the evidence, did not include a scenario where due diligence and guarantee verifications was a condition subsequent. But it appears somehow that became what was worked with, what you worked with. Can you please explain that? Can you please explain that?
Are you saying that the provision of guarantee was condition subsequent? No. It is a key condition precedent.
Precedent, yes.
Yes, not subsequent. The key condition. We mustn't forget the events that led to all this. The transfer, the whole concession agreement was supposed to have come to an end with the transfer in December 2018. Unfortunately, we missed that deadline because some documents were not ready. A whole lot of things were going on. It was postponed to end of January 2019. That we missed that deadline, and I think we were given the last chance, which was the 1st of March, which the MCC was not prepared to extend. So we were really pushed in a corner, so to speak. And the original requirement was either cashback guarantee, which of course they couldn't get. That is PDS. They couldn't get. If my memory serves me right, they cited the fact that the tariff methodology was not in place. So it was watered down to a bank guarantee, and that still the tariff methodology was not quite ready. So again, it was watered down again because no bank was going to give them the guarantee if and when the tariff methodology was not in place. So it was watered down again to insurance company providing the guarantee, and that is why we ended up having this guarantee. But we shouldn't also forget that on the face of the guarantee at the time that it was delivered, it was very tight, very tight deadline. When it was produced, on the face of it, it looked quite okay. They did the initial due diligence, which was fine.
Can you explain? Forgive me. When you say looked quite okay, what was the basis for that conclusion?
Of course, when these things happen, you can't just prima facie go and delve straight away into the detail, the minutiae of things. You can't, because this, the guarantee has been presented. Deadline is just around the corner. I'm talking about hours, and guarantee has been provided. So the initial due diligence was done, which, we were reasonably happy. The people in concern were reasonably happy. And soon after that, they delved into the detailed due diligence, and that is what has brought us where we are. I think the ECG, we must really give them, kudos. They did a good job by delving into this whole due diligence, and that is where how they were able to uncover what we have uncovered today. So we must say that government and ECG have done a good job. I mean, I'm not being too political here. I don't want to sound too political here, but I think the good people of this country should give the government and the ECG some, gold star for having done the job that we've done.
But I want to return to the question I asked about, and I'll bring Simatia in very shortly, about the condition precedents that need to be met. I've seen the parliamentary document that ECG brought to the committee, in which they say that as of 8th of March, and this is 7 days after you've already given the PDS already taken over, they mentioned that there were 16 conditions that were still left that had not been fulfilled. That included 15 conditions, and that these conditions somehow were going to be fulfilled post the handing over.
Some CPs were converted to condition subsequent, but the guarantee was a key condition precedent. It was not. It was never a condition subsequent. No, it was always a condition precedent because it's key. It is very key. That's the foundation of the whole agreement.
The fundamental question there is that what we've learned now, which is that there was misrepresentation possibly. It wouldn't take much to have verified that with the insurance company in Qatar.
No, please, let's be careful here. This it appears to be a grand scheme to hoodwink. I'm not talking about just small boys doing something. This is it appears to be a grand scheme that has been perpetrated, and I'm happy to say that it's been found out, and that is where we are now. To say that it was such an easy job to just go and verify that the company was not kosher or whatever, it's not as simple as that. If you look at the correspondence that went on between MIDA and ACG, it is a grand scheme. That, of course, correspondence was going on ostensibly from KUT to ECG to MIDA, and due to the good work that the government and ECG put in, we eventually got, again, I have to be very careful, eventually got information that appears that the information that or the correspondence that purported to have come from a certain quarter was not genuinely coming from those quarters.
Kindly hold the line for me. Let me bring your friend and also in this industry, Dr. Steve Matial, who is joining us via Skype. Dr. Matial, you've heard a lot from the Deputy Minister. You've heard, I'm sure you monitored, and I know you were involved in civil society as well in dealing with the issues before the concession was agreed and approved. What's your own take on what has happened and what you've just heard?
Right, thank you very much, Evans. Normally, we expect competitive processes to deliver best results. But in this particular instance, the ECG concession bid round did not produce the best result. And the signs were on the walls right from day one. We kept changing the rules as if we wanted to favor some particular companies. In fact, the local content partner was supposed to be a condition precedent to the award of the concession. But somewhere along the line, under the excuse that we were running out of time, and some of the companies were struggling to find local content partners, we dropped that. Again, as a result of insisting or increasing the local content component of the concession from 20% to 51%, some of the companies became disinterested in the process and withdrew. We ended up eventually with only two companies, BXC and Miracle. And then we used technicality to knock out BXC on account that they were already doing some work for ECG, which they failed to disclose. BXC attempted to seek redress in court, but somewhere along the line, I think they dropped it. So what was meant to be a competitive process really did not end up being a competitive process. We handed over ECG to Miracle on a silver platter. And then Miracle had to go look for a local partner. But I must say that all along from the beginning, Philip Ayensu had been with Miracle. But it was clear that he didn't have the capital.
Who is Philip Ayensu?
Sorry?
Who is Philip Ayensu?
Well, he's part of the PDS group.
Okay.
Indeed, he's the person we knew right from the beginning. The other names being mentioned came up a bit later. I recall, we worked on these issues with a consortium of CSOs, which became known as COSECA, Coalition of Stakeholders on ECG Concession Arrangements. We met with various key stakeholders. We met with MIDA, we met with the minister, then Boache Jakon, we met with the president. In fact, we were instrumental in pushing for the 51% local content for Ghanaians, and something we actually commend the president for acceding to. But we were still worried because throughout the process, Miracle was never represented at the highest level of Miracle's management. The gentleman from Philippines who was actually policing the process for and on behalf of Miracle was the middle level manager. And for us, that spoke of two key possible reasons. Either Miracle was not really taking the bid round seriously, and for which reason if they even won, they was not going to pay very keen attention to ECG and the mandate they have to deliver improved services to Ghanaians. The other reason we also gathered from the lack of serious participation at the highest level of Miracle was that possibly the senior management of Miracle was not involved in this process, and they were not really aware of what was going on. It could be that somebody was using the name of the company to push the interest.
Do I hear you saying that you are not surprised at the way things have turned out now?
Yeah, I'm not surprised because we saw this happening. We thought that after we were left with two companies, and we knew very well that Miracle, they couldn't demonstrate financial capacity. And so at that point, and by the time we got to that point, most of the very serious companies that were involved in this process had dropped. A lot of them pulled out. So we knew clearly that we only were left with the chaff, and yet we proceeded to award the contract to a company we knew very well that there were issues and concerns about their seriousness about this whole process.
Yeah, I mean, Mr. Matia, hold on. Mr. Orekwedu, wasn't it that obvious to government that, as Mr. Matia had just said, that we're walking into a black hole?
It's a very, I'm sorry to say that. Can you hear me?
I can hear you loud and clear, sir.
Yes, I'm sorry to say that my good friend is making a very irresponsible statement. I mean, how could you say that government was aware that we're walking into a black hole? Of course, that's preposterous. It's never true. Due diligence was done by way of the procurement of who was going to partner to be the concessionaire. And that is, we did what we had to do, and it was not just government. MCC was there was a transaction advisor was also there. So you can't just say that we knew we were walking into a black hole. That is not a very responsible statement.
Yes.
Come in quickly.
Yes, please, briefly, and I'll come to myself.
Honorable Oreku knew very well that even there were issues with the transaction advisor. It became clear that the transaction advisor at some point was actually placed in a conflict of interest situation.
Who is the transaction advisor?
The IFC.
Why? Why were they in conflict of interest situation?
They had interest in some of the companies that were initially competing to take over ECG. And when we raised concerns about the conflict of interest situation in which IFC found itself, the IFC responded by saying that if they were to withdraw at that point, the whole process will be left without a credible transaction advisor. And this, Honorable Oreku is very much aware. So the whole process had serious issues, and we should have actually taken our time to make sure that at least we avoided some of these clear dangers that lie ahead of us.
Hold on line for me. Let me come to you. Your government started this. I've heard the argument, but there were time constraints. What Dr. Sigmata is suggesting is that we could have paused and done things properly. Mr. Rekudi says we didn't have that luxury.
We didn't need to force ourselves to do things when we knew that if we rush over it, we'll have serious challenges. There's always a way of doing things and getting it right. But before I go, I want to touch on first the weight of miracle. It's very important that we look at the statistics. I want to look at the total asset.
By the way, Miracle, if you're wondering, they are the lead agency in the consultancy. It's a Philippine company.
The net worth, total assets. There were 6 companies. The first one, NLSPA. Their total asset is 120 billion. Then we have ME Services, $176 billion. We have CH Group, EDF, and Voelia. Each of them, ECD Group, CH Group, we don't know, they didn't have it, but EDF is 306.8 billion.
What is Miracle's value?
Miracle is 5.8 billion, but we know even ECG, the asset worth, is 18 billion. So in terms of asset worth, 3 times Miracle.
Yeah.
Is equal
but the
to
others pulled out. It's not like they pulled out. They weren't in a race. You have to be in it to win it.
When doctor said that Miracle was not a company that was outstanding, and the minister disputed it, that is why I'm coming up with this figure, so that we know that it wasn't an outstanding company with huge assets, more than ECG. No. 3 times the assets of Miracle is equivalent to that of ECG. The second one is watered down. In the agreement,
he explained.
We didn't say you water down into insurance. It's guaranteed and it must be straight.
But he explained why that happened.
Why should it happen?
Because the tariff had not been dealt with.
No.
And nobody was going to give you the guarantee in the absence of that. That's the minister's explanation a few minutes ago.
So because of that, you water it down?
But so what should they have
done?
To
not make it quite liquid in case of
No, so challenges. What should they have done?
Please, they could have done the tariffs, announce it, and hand over. Because what they had provided is just purely an insurance, which cannot easily be converted to cash. So you sacrifice 80 billion just because tariffs, you've not announced tariffs. So that's where you understand. MIDA, where I said you shouldn't despise MIDA Ghana, is that if a company, an institution or organization is located in the office of the president, the president appoints the CEO. Then when there are issues you want us to see different from the government,
no, but there are many CEOs the president appoints who not necessarily answer to the president.
They answer to the president. That's why it is under the office of the president. So that the Minister of Energy do not even have control over them. So that they report directly to the president. And that is why that option is given to the president to appoint the CEO. That means appointing somebody he can work with. Appointing somebody he thinks will do the right thing. Then if you take ECG, detecting it, one of ECG's role is monitoring. So if the government cannot detect it from the beginning, and it is ECG in the process of monitoring the detected, it is detected. And government says, oh, thank you, ECG. Government must be ashamed for not being able to detect it from the beginning to prevent it.
But they've explained, the balloting came to you, Parliament approved.
We approve guarantee to be provided.
Yeah, and the guarantee was provided. He says initial checks were made. IFC okayed it. And then whilst the thing was this, and due diligence is a continuum.
I thought government would have said, apologize to the people of Ghana, take responsibility, and stop pointing fingers at here and there, and say we should even praise government for detecting it. Ultimate responsibility lies with the president. Ultimate responsibility.
That's a fundamental question I need to ask. What have we lost with this action? Have we lost anything?
We risk. And unless we do an assessment.
Yes, an audit will review.
Yes, we do an assessment whether we have lost. So I can't sit here and just predict what we have lost. So it is very important to understand that this issue of the concession, government did not do any good job.
Ben?
Yeah, I mean, from the conversation, you clearly will see that a lot of things did not go as planned for this whole concession arrangement. The IFC is actually the body that advised government to take the concession option, because when they did the analysis of the options of private sector participation, they had a concession arrangement, they had contract management and a lease. So they advised that the concession arrangement was the best option. So if we had challenges implementing that option, we could go back to the MCC to say that, well, there are timelines, but we are failing because we are not able to deliver, as was expected. And that's why we are humans. We have to negotiate.
MCC is Millennium Challenge Compact.
Corporation.
That's a U.S. bit of it, and they were going to give us less than. So
they have locked in some timelines, but we're able to vary the timelines toward the end. We could have done the same when there was virtually no competition. When companies had pulled out because the pre-qualification had been done before 50%, 51% local content was thrown in there. And if that required that we initiated the process all over again, we needed to communicate that to MCC to ensure we could do that. But that didn't happen. And then we got to the crunch point where now we were just watering down to accommodate PDS. And that is how they also got perhaps the opportunity to slip in some of these fraudulent misrepresentation, as we're being told now. So
you have made you said tonight that people should be interdicted whilst investigation.
No, I think those people who manage this process so badly cannot continue to be around any evidence. MIDA and IFC that has been advised. I don't think government should continue consuming advice from IFC on this matter. We need to appoint our own advisor if we have to go on with a PSP.
So you expect people at MIDA, but also maybe those at PDS that government is pointing at should be interdicted now while the process is investigated?
Yeah, exactly.
Mr. Rekwedu, what do you make of that call by ASAP that interdict people now as you finalize the probe?
Even this, the situation is very fluid right now, and to start pointing fingers will be a little bit premature. I think we should delve into it, and of course, if people are found to have been not given the proper advice, I think the proper course is to sue. This is business. To sue the advisor who failed to give the proper advice for whatever damage may have been caused. But let me go back, and I don't know once again how you started this whole program. Mm-hmm. My brother, Honorable Mutawakilu, keeps saying that the media is under the government, and media is not under the government. It's MCC's product. It's not government. And don't also let us forget that this whole concession thing was inherited by this government. The NDC government.
But MEDA chief executive is appointed by the president, and he says
no, he's not. If you remember,
MEDA in Ghana, he says.
No, he is not appointed by the president. No, that is not true. It's the MCC that appointed Mr. Eson Benjamin. It's not the president of the republic. No. So let's get that straight. And also, we mustn't lose sight of the fact that this whole concession thing was initiated by the previous NDC government. The president of the republic inherited it, and then he tried as much as possible to make good by negotiating through the vice president all the good things like the reduction in the number of years, like you cannot stack anybody, like a Ghanaian should have 51%. So we must look at all this in context. And having said that, I really find it a little bit funny that my brother sitting there is trying to make gain political points by making assertions which are rather fantastic, that government should be blamed for not having done what it's supposed to do. I still insist that, but for government and ECG, the good work that they did, probably things would have turned out much worse than they are.
So you
don't spend, let me just land here.
Mm-hmm,
you don't spend 1 day or 1 month to do proper due diligence when the other party is not kosher, so to speak. We have done what we had to do, and then we've arrived at where we are to save the assets for the good people of this country and to also protect the liquidity that is in the system as far as the PDS is concerned. So I say again that I insist that we've done a good job, and that but for government, once again, NECG, things would have been worse than they are.
You said things could have been worse. It could have been worse, which means that there's an admission in there that what it is right now shouldn't have happened.
Of course it shouldn't have happened.
And that is where people say government should take all the responsibility. And the question then is substantively, are we doing an audit now to see if what has gone in terms of the assets, in terms of the monies, etc., that PDS probably will be holding, what we probably would have lost?
Even before I answer that question, I still insist that no, government should not be blamed for having done a good job by preserving the assets of this nation. You don't get blamed for protecting the assets of your people. No, we have done that, and of course, once again, we must also know that due diligence at this sort of level of business, it's not done like a day. You don't just go there, especially so when you have some people who are purported to have been trying to, play funny games in this whole scheme. But we still manage, notwithstanding all the games that were being played at the other side, to have unraveled the situation, and we've saved ourselves, and we are where we are. The next step is to try and find out to try and work out the way forward. What is going to happen to the whole concession? Whether the whole thing can be cured, the suspension can be cured, or whatever. It's early days, so let us give ourselves time. Let us rush, and then stop making fantastic allegations, and let's keep cool heads and sort this problem out.
And
because government is committed to this. Let me make that quite clear. Government is committed to the concession, and the best way forward is what we have to think about right now.
And very quickly, I know you've taken steps to secure assets. Is there a plan to do an audit right now to determine what has happened since March, so that the people don't lose anything in this process?
Naturally, these things happen, and of course, investigations will go on. The police will come in. Of course, international insurance investigators will come in to really ascertain exactly what went wrong, if indeed something has gone wrong. So, it's too early a day for us to start speculating. All the things that needs to be done, government, I can assure on behalf of the government that government will do everything necessary to unravel this and get to the bottom of it and save the good people of this country.
Quickly address for me what happens to the workers of PDS now in this current circumstance.
No, they continue. The government, that is very important, but thanks for reminding me. Government is committed to the well-being of the workers of PDS. We're going to make sure that their salaries and all their emoluments, all the benefits, their welfare is uppermost in government's mind, and that they shouldn't be unduly alarmed because their interest is going to be protected by government.
Dr. Sigmatia, what should happen now? Do you also have Dr. Sigmatia on the line?
Can you hear me?
Yes. What should happen now?
Yeah, I would have expected that at this stage, a state investigative body, independent one for that matter, would have taken up the investigation processes just to ensure the integrity of the ongoing investigations. Because we all seem to have lost some hope and confidence in our state investigative institutions, I will suggest that at this stage, a bipartisan approach to the ongoing investigations will be very useful in ensuring that we do not sweep anything under the carpet and to ensure that the integrity of the investigative processes are secured.
Let me come to this and pick your final thoughts. Ms. Wotawakilu, where do we go from here? You've asked for full-scale probe into this. Where do we go from here? You're a member of parliament, so I guess you have authority to do something about it.
Yeah, I think, thank you very much. I think definitely it was discussed in parliament, and I know a decision will be taken by the leadership of parliament, the whole parliament going forward. But it's usual that when MPP they are in corner, they always want to point figures. Yes, we brought the compact. But the challenges we are having today is through their implementation of that compact. Did we ask NPP to go and vary what Parliament has approved? Did we ask them to, when a guarantee is provided, they shouldn't do due diligence? This their smart way of blaming previous government for their wrong decisions must stop. Yes, it must stop.
Ben?
Yeah, I mean, this is an embarrassing situation, and the earlier we fix it, the better.
How do we fix this? I mean, that's a bigger question.
For us. So,
he suggested today that PDS could be reinstated.
I think that's feasible? The surprising turn, but I'm sure Ghanaians will be really...
From where you say that's as an industry player, where we are, is that feasible?
No, I think it's possible if it turns out that what government puts out is not true. Then you don't have any option than to reinstate them. But that would have caused them a lot of damage. PDS, a lot of damage, trying to patch up with their customers and Ghanaians, within the space. And for me, we have to sit back and see whether we can get better guarantees for the assets of ECG. You don't hand $18 billion to a company only to receive $350 million bond, insurance bond. It's a useless piece of paper, really. We need to have firm financial guarantees that we can walk to the bank if they default to go and pay the money, and have a well-structured monitoring strategy to ensure that PDS deliver. And that is why we brought them in, to be able to retool the distribution sector and clean it up so that we can be freed from the consistent discussion on ESLA and debt repayment.
Government says they're committed to the concession arrangement. That is not in doubt, right? They should
but I'm not hearing that they are committed to PDS. So it could be another concession.
But you know that agreement. It's more embarrassing to say that you were time constrained.
Yeah, but
because of that, you have to speed up things.
But that's the reality.
And you are caught up.
That's the reality.
In this situation. It's more embarrassing.
That's Adam Mutawakilu, ranking member on the Mines and Energy Committee. You also been watching Benjamin Wache, who is executive secretary of the executive director of the Africa Center for Energy Policy. On the line, we had the deputy energy minister responsible for power. So this is his forte. And also on Skype, we had Dr. Steve Mateo. Listen, there is a delegation, a high-powered delegation of government that is supposed to travel to Qatar shortly to try and do a further verification of these guarantees. I'm sure when they go, we'll hear about that as well. So if we've not heard the last of this, stay with us. When we do get it, you'll get it as well. My name is Evan Smith. Enjoy the rest of your evening.